you're going to help make sure that we keep it official, right?
Yes. I don't like how far away this is. I feel like I'm gonna have to shout. Not that I don't have a large voice. So Ken, when was the last time we saw each other? Was it at the 52nd?
Lisa, nice to meet you.
Ken Mogul, nice to meet you.
Hi, Chad. You too.
Ken, was the last time we saw each other at the 52nd? Were you representing someone at the 52nd?
I think it was in Birmingham, and it was before COVID, and it ran into COVID. It was a lawyer, my client was a lawyer who would let his son have a house party there. And that wasn't the first time, and we were not very happy about it.
No, but I'm sure we worked it out,
We
right?
did work it out good.
You know, it's so funny. I tend to run into people like anywhere I go. Like literally, we were in the Dominican Republic, and someone came up and tapped me on the shoulder, and they'd say, "I know you. You prosecuted me," and I'd always say, "How'd it go?" Just how'd it go before we say another word. Were we friends or foe by the end? And then if they say, "Oh no, it was great. No, you were fair. Oh hi, nice to see you." If they say, "Well, you were pretty tough," I'll say, "You know, that was my twin sister. That's not me." Oh, I left my water in the car too. I am discombobbled.
Grab it for you.
Hmm?
I can grab it for you if you like.
No, you don't have to.
Do you need a packet?
No, I have one.
Okay.
Oh, and I have presents for everybody.
Okay.
Are we ready to start?
I think so. Do you want to call the meeting to order, Mr.
As
Mogul?
long as if you're all ready, then
Yes. Yep.
okay. Good. September 17, 2025, regular meeting of the Village of Lake Orion Board of Ethics is called to order.
And if I could just note, it's very important to speak into the microphone when we're broadcasting these meetings, and the public won't be able to hear you.
Okay,
so.
should I repeat it? Or we also, should I repeat?
Oh, just keep moving.
Okay. And roll,
Roll call. Okay. Board Member Mogul?
present.
Board Member Flynn? Present. Board Member Scribner?
President.
You have a quorum.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. If anybody has any comments, questions, otherwise,
Motion to approve?
Yep, second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Approval of the minutes. We have the organizational meeting minutes from June 25, 2025. I have one little correction to offer.
Oh, okay.
It identifies me as being current chair of the State Bar Ethics Committee. That ended a long time ago, past chair.
I'm sorry, repeat what you just said?
The minutes identify me as being the current chair of the State Bar Ethics Committee. It should
Oh.
be past chair.
Okay, past chair. Okay, thank you. I'll make the changes.
Any other additions, corrections?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Public comments. There do not appear to be any members of the public present.
I've not received any by email either.
Okay. In that case, unfinished business. I don't believe we have any unfinished business. And then we move on to new business. Board of Ethics, legal framework, and procedures. I think that means it's time to turn it over to Mary.
All right. Good to see all of you. I'm pretty excited about all of this because I was the one who came to Darwin, and Darwin agreed wholeheartedly that we believe that an ethics ordinance is really important for communities. And you'd be shocked that few communities actually have ethics ordinance. They rely on the global state law for certain things. And the state law is, Mr. Mogul, Chair, it's going to be hard for me to not say Ken, stay formal, really, in my opinion, stops short. And I think the challenge for all of you is going to be in delving into the ordinance and the importance of the ordinance. And what's most important about this ethics ordinance is it's the minimal standard of conduct and behavior. It is not the epitome. It is not the unicorn. It is the bare standard of conduct. And I think that's super important that when people are involved, particularly in local government, be it the elected officials, be it officers of the village, be it the employees, be it people who are serving on boards, people who are appointed to boards, the public deserves and expects a certain amount of behavior and transparency, and to do so above board with zero conflicts. And so that's why I think this ordinance is really important. And this particular ordinance has been in the works for 25 years. So I brought it from Birmingham, where I serve as their city attorney as well. But 25 years ago, this ordinance was developed, and it's been put through the rigor over and over again. I don't know if any of you have gone to the Birmingham website and taken a look at this online. I'll tell you about that in a second. They have heard, I don't even know how many cases, multiple cases per year, not just for complaints of ethical violations, but for advisory opinions as well. So if you go to the Birmingham website and you look at their boards and committees, it'll list all the boards and committees. And if you look at the ethics board and tap on it, it will list out the last 25 years of cases. And it will tell you what they've been about. There's like an index, so there should be an index if the clerk there did a good job, that says it's about a conflict of interest, or it's about maybe a financial interest in a building while serving on a committee. It could be of a personal interest. So in fact, I had a question of personal interest back about, I don't know, when was that? 1920? Probably 1920 or 2020, where I had a relationship that I wasn't sure if it was a conflict of interest. So I went to the ethics board and I filled out the form for an advisory opinion. And I appeared in front of them and we laid out the facts, and they gave me a written opinion as to the fact that it was not a conflict, but it could turn into one. And here's what we're going to do to safeguard. So now when anyone ever says to me, hey, is that a conflict? I can say, you know what? No. I went and asked the experts, and I have a written opinion that tells me it's not a conflict. And if it ever appears like one, here's what I am duty-bound to do. Now, the conflict came to this community too. It was about a personal relationship, not my husband. And we didn't have an ethics ordinance for me to make that test. So instead, I went to the manager at the time and the president at the time, and we had an open discussion, and they understood, and we had a dialogue, and I had their approval. But I didn't have a written opinion. So that if anyone questioned it, I could say, well, these two people made this determination, and I'm good to go, and I know my ethical obligations, and I'm good to go. But wouldn't it have been great to have the three impartial experts and a written opinion? And so from that moment on, I thought this community really needs that. It's good for not only the residents, the greater community, but it's good for all of us too. So it's very protective. That was very long-winded. So a couple things too, just looking at the minutes, I just kind of want to, just so you guys can get to know me better with all of your histories. My first life and my first job was a registered nurse. I maintained my licensing, so I really appreciate a vascular surgeon. One of my favorite teachers of my whole life was a vascular surgeon. He taught me how to be a better nurse. And then I went on to law school, and I worked at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, then went into the private practice prosecution area just because it gave me more flexibility with family. And then I switched over and started doing municipal work back in about 2013-14. Started with Orchard Lake, the city of Orchard Lake Village, then came on with the village of Lake Orion, and yes, those get confused all the time. And then now I do the city attorney work for Birmingham. I represent Rochester Hills Library, Wayne County Ethics Board. So the Wayne County, Wayne County Airport acts like a little city, and they have an ethics board division. And so each year I go through disclosure statements. If there's ever a question, they bring it to me to analyze for conflicts of interest. So I act like you for the airport, which is very interesting and sometimes a lot of fun. It's kind of fun to talk to people about these things. And at first, those people were very resistant. And when they now learn that this is all about preventing problems, it's about preventing conflicts, it's about teaching, it's about helping everyone understand where the roles are and where they aren't and how to stay in those lanes. And I think people like that. So I was just making little notes here as I went through your minutes. So the next thing I noticed in your minutes is that you were talking about your next meetings. So once you guys have your framework down and you all agree on your rules of procedure and you agree what the forum should look like and you agree how this is going to work and look since you are laying the foundation, you don't have to meet until there is a case. Unless you want to, because you want to continue to talk about how this is working. But it's not necessary. It's not like other boards where you have to meet monthly or bi-monthly. You meet as needed. So how does that work? Okay, so let's say I wanted my advisory opinion. I would come here to the village or go to the website and I would download the form saying that I'm seeking an advisory opinion. And I would fill that out and I would give that to the clerk. The clerk then would immediately forward it to each one of you and find out your schedule to set it for a hearing on a mutually agreed upon date. Now with the advisory, you don't have the construction or the conflicts of time. It can be whenever it's convenient. Oftentimes, though, when people want an advisory opinion, they need it usually with some haste to make other decisions. And the only thing that you would all be responding to are dates. You know, it's hard, you're a group of 3, so a quorum is 2. So anytime anybody says something to the other, it's honestly a quorum. So when you only have 3 members, it's extremely important that there not be conversation about anything that's important or germane other than scheduling, because that could be an immediate violation of the Open Meetings Act. So in any case, you guys would come up with a schedule, a time, and the clerk then would verify that with the seeker of the advisory opinion, and here we would all meet at a certain date and time, which does not have to be in the evening. I know village meetings are in the evenings. You don't have to meet in the evenings. You can do it whenever it's convenient for you. And then you would hear what's going on. You would have a public hearing. Any members of the public can be here. Public is always welcome to chime in. And at the conclusion of that, you can have dialogue amongst each other in this public forum. And you can get a consensus, and you can kind of talk about what you think. And you can go around, and Ms. Flynn may say, well, you know what, based upon these facts, I do think that there's a conflict of interest. I do think that it goes to the heart of the particular section of the ordinance. And I'm going to tell you now, it's hard to remember every section of those ordinances because they're somewhat redundant and overlapping, but they are for reasons. And you could say, yeah, I think that they do violate section such and such if this behavior, activity, or relationship were to occur. And then Mr. Mogul may say, you know what, I don't think it rises to that. Here's what I'm hearing. And then Mr. Scribner, I'm sorry about that. Okay. You know, I'm with Mr. Mogul. I don't think it's a conflict. So that you would actually have your motion and the majority would pass. Whomever is in the majority, that may be a 2-1 split, it may be a 3-0. You would take turns. This is just my recommendation. Again, you make your own rules, but my recommendation is you take turns and you rotate who writes the advisory opinion. I think it's important to take turns and rotate because each of you speak in a different voice. Each of you would speak on paper differently. And I think that that's kind of nice for the community to get a different flavor. You know, I love that it's not 3 lawyers on this board. People like lawyers because it is a quasi-judicial thing. You're having a hearing. But I like when different disciplines are involved to think through behaviors and actions and words differently. Sometimes people will say, well, if it's this type of person, they're going to be too sympathetic and never find anyone responsible. Well, you know, that's I think what makes justice, because you have to look and hear and have a different perspective based upon each one of our own individual experiences, right? So I think it gives a great balance, and I really like that. And that's why I think it's important for the writers to take turns, because that voice and that balance comes through. So before, when I talked about the Birmingham website, and you can see all of the opinions, the written opinions are there too. So when people are looking for guidance, and they say, I wonder what they said about this, this is why it's so nice to hear a different voice. And you can see the writings over the years. For 20 years, they had 2 lawyers and a social worker. And you could tell before you even read the name when the social worker wrote it. And it was interesting because you could see a little more humanity in the voice. So anyway, I encourage you to follow that model, but again, it's your rules to make. And then the dissenter, so in my example, Ms. Flynn was, or Dr. Flynn, excuse me, was the dissenter. You have the opportunity to write a dissenting opinion if you want. And if you go to that website, you can see how they did it. And it is, and if you get a chance to watch 1 or 2 of their hearings, some were days long, days and days and days. Some were 2 hours, some were 20 minutes. You get, I think, a nice flavor for how they did this. And again, they were the frontiers, and they made this model, and it lasted 20-something years. And each one of them have just recently left for they've been doing it a long time. One gentleman moved. So we have 3 new people on with 2 alternates. I would encourage you to find alternates. It's extremely important because of the fact you don't just want a decision being made by 2. So I would tell you to keep seeking alternates as quickly as possible. And they would attend the meetings as well, so they could learn and hear as well. But you'll see the great dialogue between these 3 people and how deeply they respected each other and each other's opinions. And oftentimes they could not be on more polar ends. It was very interesting. Okay, so enough of that. You don't have to meet every every month, but just when needed, or when there's a complaint. I see that you started to go through the procedural rules, and you had some comments and some concerns about those, and that's a good thing, because you know everything can get improved upon, everything. So I'm glad you're looking at it with a critical eye. As you complaints, that's right. So we wanted to talk about the process of complaints and how that should work and look, and we can dig into that and read it together and see what your comments are. I do think it's important for transparency as well. So if I were to file a complaint against someone, I fill out the form. I use as much paper as necessary for the allegations. I would be encouraged to use the actual section of the ordinance I think the person violated and give the example and the evidence as to what I believe that is if I'm making the complaint. The complaint would go to the clerk and, then she would immediately send it to each of you. Again, within so many days you have to have a hearing. Now, that doesn't mean you necessarily conduct the hearings of findings of fact, but you would get together within a certain time frame, laying out the ground rules, the procedural rules, kind of like a pretrial, if you will. The person who's accused of a violation of the ordinance has the right to have an attorney if they would like. They can represent themselves if they would like. So that gives everyone a chance to get together and say, here's the ground rules. Here's how this is going to go. How much time do you think we need? How many witnesses do you think you have? The person who's brought the complaint. It's run like a little trial. And so if you get together and actually do the hearing at the same time, that's great. If you use that first hearing to satisfy the date requirement, it can be an organizational planning meeting if necessary. During the meeting, and any other time, again, you are all bound by the Open Meetings Act because you are a public body. So for those of you who have never heard of the Open Meetings Act, is that familiar to the non-attorney? So in Michigan, actually throughout the United States, but each state has their own version of something called the Open Meetings Act. And the whole purpose of the act is to assure that public bodies are legislative bodies, people who have been elected, but public bodies are people who have been appointed as well. And people who are serving on boards, committees, commissions. And the purpose of people to get together and talk and do things is usually to make a decision about something. And that decision making is called deliberation. So the state of Michigan, through the Attorney General, has said, anytime you're thinking and you're talking about an issue that's affecting government and public policy and the public, anytime you're doing that, even if you're not making a motion and declaring, but anytime you're in that thoughtful, chatty phase, you're deliberating. And if you're deliberating, it has to be in the public. It has to be where everyone can hear, see, and be a participant of that body's collective conversation. So once you have your conversation, be it this board, be it the council, then the public has the right to stand up and chime in and have their position and their perspective heard, so that when you make a final vote, you're taking into account all you've heard. The Open Meetings Act allows for occasionally a closed session where the public can't hear, and those are 7 very specific exemptions. None of those exemptions will apply to this board. So there's never a time that you will be able to go into closed session. Now, that gets a little uncomfortable when you are being faced with talking about somebody and their behavior. And if there is a complaint that somebody did something that was in violation of the ordinance, you're talking about them almost like they're not there. And it is uncomfortable. But I think all of you are ready for that, because otherwise you would not have applied for this position. So people will say, well, how am I really doing anything wrong if I'm not making a decision? But if I were to read this complaint and I get on the phone and I call my co-board member and say, yeah, I don't know if there's enough evidence here, it doesn't seem that bad to me. You're not making a decision, right? But just the mere chatting, you're creating your thoughts, you're creating your opinion. And your opinion should be based upon what you hear and see and read in the public. And the public has the right to see your response, and the public has the right to see and hear your process of how you got to your decision. And that's true for this board and all the other boards I just mentioned. So that's why it's so important for no conversation to happen on the computer other than scheduling. I did bring with me, and I will make sure you have, so like I said, the Attorney General interprets a lot of this, and each Attorney General puts out their own handbook. And it is just kind of handy. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to bind it for you. I wanted to, but my secretary called in sick today. And I don't know how to operate the machine, is the truth. So anyway, it's just a handy handbook, and I have one of those for each one of you as well. Coupled with that is another act in Michigan called the Freedom of Information Act. So the public has the right to receive information that the government has. And that can mean anything. That can mean anything from something that has been written, that can mean spreadsheets. The government doesn't have to create something to satisfy this law. But if you want to know something, that the government has or does, you have the right to come to it and say, I would like you to show me X. So with your opinions, for instance, I don't know how they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to get put into an index and on the website, or if they're just going to be here. But if someone says, hey, I would like to know what happened in this case when someone made a complaint against, John Doe, I'd like to read that opinion. They have to fill out a form and then they receive it. For this board, I don't think you're going to have a lot of FOIA questions or FOIA issues. Most of those are ran through the clerk as the FOIA expert here in the village. But just for fun, you know, because I know you like reading about government, I made you a copy of that as well. Let's see. As far as the village's role, the only role that the village itself has with you is through the clerk as your liaison with the complainant or the person who's seeking an advisory. My only role would be to be here to make sure you're following the rules and the guidelines that are set out by your policies and your rules and the ordinance. And sometimes there have been questions like, can we do this or can we do that? Should we take testimony now? Or so most of the time I'm quiet, which is really hard for a lawyer, but most of the time I'm quiet unless you seek my advice or I see something happening that I have to stop and raise my hand and chime in. So my only role is to keep you on task and on the road, which at the beginning, you know, you might need a little bit of it. I think from my blabbing, that's probably, have I covered everything in that realm before we get into the meat and potatoes? Anyone have any questions?
I do.
Good.
When we get notified of either a complaint or a request for an advisory opinion, are we going to get information of what the topic is, or just we need to set a meeting? Can the clerk send us, information of whether it's an advisory opinion?
Yes.
Or a complaint when she reaches out to us for scheduling?
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, she can send you the actual
Complaint form?
complaint.
Okay, perfect.
So you can hear and see right from the beginning, and you'll learn. I'm sorry, and thank you for saying that. And when we go through the procedure rules together and you say, yeah, we're good with this, or no, we're not good with this, let's talk about it. But one of the parts of this is there is an opportunity under your rules where you can look at a complaint and you can already know that there is not enough in it, not enough allegations, not enough evidence to even merit a hearing. And if that's the case, usually the chairperson can reach out to the clerk and say, I am making a finding that there's not enough. And we can talk about that more when we get into the rules and make sure you three like the framework of how that could work, okay? Chairpersons, the other recommendation, I commandeered your question, Doctor.
No.
I would also recommend rotating chair annually. Again, just because I think it's important that different perspectives, different personalities, and each of you have a chance to be the chairperson. And I think that that's a good idea. Again, your decision, but that would be my recommendation. Okay, Doctor, I'm sorry. Did you have follow-up on the question?
No, I just, because you said we can't, read or think about or do anything on our own to avoid violating the Open Meetings Act. I just wondered if we would get any kind of content of what we were walking into.
Yes. You're just keeping an open mind, and it's, I know that's really hard to do because we look at things and we oftentimes jump to conclusions. But as sort of a judge, you're hearing allegations, and as you know from the criminal law aspect, and everyone's innocent until proven guilty, same thing here. And this is not a finding of guilt or innocence, it's a finding that you violated the ethics ordinance. And as you probably already read, the sanctions depend upon who the person is. If it's an elected official, this board does not have the authority to remove an elected official, only the governor does. If the behavior rises to such a level that clearly they not only violate the ethics ordinance, if it's bad enough, we, meaning the village or its representatives, can petition the state and the governor to take a look at it. That's quite rare. So if you were to have a finding that a council member, the elected official, violated the ethics ordinance, again, you would write the opinion. And you can even make a recommendation for sanctioning. But the sanction then, your opinion, your recommendation for sanction goes to the entire council the whole board, and they hear it, they see it, they discuss it, they deliberate, and they can sanction each other. Now, sanctions, honestly, can be, we want you to go take a sensitivity class. Sanctions can be, we are publicly admonishing your behavior. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but no one wants that. No public official likes that and wants it, and it's not pleasant and it's embarrassing. But again, these are the minimal standards of conduct. And every official, every appointed person, and every employee signs the code like you did to say, I've read it, I've acknowledged it, I accept this is part of what I'm taking on when I either put on my elected official hat, my appointment hat, or I'm serving the people. If the person is an employee, then the opinion, your opinion, and any recommendation that you would have for sanction goes to the village manager, and the manager makes the determination, and it can be up to termination of employment. If it's a person who serves, who's been appointed by the council again makes the determination of the sanction, which could be including removal from the board. So, like a judge, if you were having a jury trial, you would tell your jury, don't worry about the punishment, that's my job. Your job is to find the facts and whether the person's guilty or innocent. Your job is to find whether or not a section of the ordinance was violated. And if you know it is and you want to recommend a sanction, you have that prerogative. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to, but there's other people who will take care of sanctions. Okay?
Chad?
No questions at a time for me.
I have one, and that is, I can anticipate that, especially early on, there may be issues where the ethics issue straddles a municipal law issue, and I take it that you're available for consult.
Absolutely. And you know what? I did forget to say something with all my talking too much.
You weren't talking too much. This is extremely helpful.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is going to sound really hard and counterintuitive, but particularly you, Chairperson Mogul, like you're like the guru on legal ethics. You got to leave that out there because that's not what this is.
Right.
This is only about this ordinance as the minimal standard of behavior. And we want even more than this, but this is the minimal expectation of all of us. So that's really, really hard when sometimes you guys are so overqualified that it's hard for you to leave that out there and only focus on this in here. And this, I'm pointing at your rules of procedure, and I'm looking at, did I even bring the ordinance itself? And the ordinance itself, which has already been passed. That's it. This is all you have. And I would find that really hard if I, teaching legal ethics to, say that doesn't count. I'm only bound by the confines of this. So I just wanted to, remind everyone of that. And Doctor, I know you've dealt with ethical ethics. Totally different beast, right? And most of the time you're making a decision about competing interests and competing lives and, okay, so that's really tough. This is easier than that, I promise.
Okay.
I promise. Having been on some ethics committees when I worked as a nurse, that's hard stuff, gut-wrenching. This will be easier.
And I'm assuming that if we are in a situation, for example, when we're being asked to give an advisory opinion, that it's permissible to look at advisory opinions from other ethics boards, you applying comparable ordinances.
Absolutely, and that is an excellent point. Not only advisory, but again, so I encourage you strongly, and if I did not have the degree of respect and faith in those 3 members that were on that board for 20-something years, I would not keep telling you, go watch, go listen, go read. I cannot tell you the phenomenal job that they did. They were so, sometimes they would take such time and detail that afterwards I'd say, you guys, it was like watching paint dry. Oh my gosh. But yet I was just in awe of the respect of the care because they knew they were affecting people. So yes, you can look for guidance. So let's say an issue is brought to you, and let's say you're struggling, you're not quite sure that fits or doesn't fit. Go read the prior opinions. Use those as a, what's the word I'm looking for? A guiding path. And you can share on the record you did, and you looked at how this was handled in another community and what they found and their findings, and it sat with you, and it made sense to you. And it helped guide how you're thinking about this. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's important to show people that you're looking at previous guiding posts, because we encourage our other members to do that all the time as well.
In the southeastern Michigan area, how many communities have advisory opinions that are accessible, like Birmingham's?
Not that many. You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked. This was really big for this community and this council to say,
Yeah.
we want this.
Yeah. Excellent.
There's a lot of communities that are quite honestly afraid of it because they want to keep doing things the way they've always done it, and it's not always been quite what I think is good and ethical, but you know, I'm just one person. But I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. Now, I will tell you, the city of Detroit has a very robust ethics council, and their violations are criminal misdemeanors. So they have a website as well with a lot of opinions. Their ordinance is quite a bit like this. They mirrored a lot of theirs from ours. So you can find information from them as well. But they've got some tough ones.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other questions or comments? So I think then, first of all, Ms. Gutierrez, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's extremely helpful to us as we start the path of getting organized here.
My pleasure.
So the next, this obviously does not need a motion, but then the next item of business is to review the procedural rules and the forms and see how we feel about them in terms of getting them finalized, and hopefully before the end of this meeting have a motion. So the floor is open to discussion of the procedural rules. I don't know if you recommend that we go through them front to back, or if anybody has something flagged.
Maybe just like say on page 1, anything you want to discuss or change.
Starting on page 1. And then as we go through, speak up when you got something.
I would like to discuss the dismissal.
Okay, so that gets us to,
Rule 202,
yeah,
page 1,
okay.
bottom.
Go ahead.
So the clerk may administratively dismiss a request before that even gets to us. Is that correct?
Yes, and then she's limited to Rule 101. So what that is technical errors. Because the request for advisory opinion must be in writing, filed with the clerk on the form prescribed, so the form you guys okay and is going to be on the website and physically accessible at the desk. And then, and then this is for the requesting party may include with the request any documents. So this is only for advisory opinions if they didn't follow the technical sense. If I handed a piece of paper that I got out of my kitchen counter and I wrote, hey, can the board tell me if it's okay for me to yell at the village manager? Then she would administratively dismiss that because it doesn't comport with 201 for the advisory opinion. Now, B then gets to when the board could administratively dismiss, and it gives the 2 reasons. 1 or more requests or complaints regarding the same matter are pending. So if there are already, let's say for instance, someone charged me with a ethics complaint because, oh gosh, maybe, let's say I had committed a felony. And then one person heard about that and filed a complaint against me. And then the next day, 2 more people heard So then they came and filed complaints against me. At that point, there could be an administrative dismissal because it's the same element. So that can be done in that way, or you previously addressed it. So let's say, for instance, that same scenario, and you guys found out that that wasn't true, I wasn't charged, and you dismissed it. Let's say 2 weeks from now, someone files the same charge, and you guys say, no, we already did that. We've already made a decision on those exact facts, so you can administratively dismiss.
Question. So at our last meeting, we talked about, because this involves city employees, if one city employee wants to complain about their boss and file a complaint, we talked about, does that come to us or does that go to their manager first?
If it's a complaint about employment, they should be going to their manager, the village
But
manager.
if they're saying they're, my boss is unethical, would that come to us and jump over their manager?
If they are alleging a violation of the ethics ordinance, and they are referencing which section of the ordinance, it would come to you, not their boss.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a really good clarification, yeah. Okay,
And
so
over
with
time,
this-
I can see where it would happen that a future board could want to revisit an opinion we issued at a prior time. Either it turned out not to work out as well, or circumstances changed, but not considering a complaint because it was previously addressed is discretionary. It's not, we're not precluded from revisiting something.
I'm not sure I'm following.
I was shifting gears, I wasn't.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yes, it was not about a complaint about them. We issue an advisory opinion. A year later, we see either us or, a different composition. And that one probably didn't have the effect we thought it would have, and probably wasn't the greatest decision. The idea of dismissing something because it was previously decided, it's not mandatory, it's discretionary.
Yes.
So we can always revisit something if we want to.
So you wanted to discuss it. I was just kind of refreshing my memory as well, what that said. So do you like that, or you think it should be something different?
No, I think that's fine. I think it would maybe depend on the circumstance of having multiple complainants against one respondent. I think that would depend, because maybe a certain complainant would provide extra insight or a different perspective on the complaint.
So they could still be a witness.
Yes, for
Without
sure.
necessarily.
Okay.
I think the idea
Yeah.
is just administratively to keep it efficient, not to preclude somebody who is in a position to offer useful information from being able to do so. Would that,
And in cases like this where, sometimes it's just so blatant and clear, right? And if it's not, you're going to deal with that. And it is discretionary. It's a may, it's not a shall, it's a may. And you're going to get together and you're going to deliberate about it in public anyway. It's just faster and quicker. It doesn't happen often, I can tell you that. It does not happen often.
okay. Anything else on this particular issue?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, let's continue on going down page 10 of our materials. Any comments on the rest of that page? Page 11. Page 12. Page 13.
I actually have an additional question on the additional information section. Upon presentation of a request for an advisory opinion, the board may direct the clerk to obtain additional information regarding the request.
Yes.
Maybe can we discuss what that would look like and how to avoid issues like you mentioned with the Open Meetings Act, how to avoid a conflict there?
Which section are we looking at, or which rule number?
I was looking at, I think it's in multiple rule sections.
203.
203.
So that is a really good question. Each of you individually can contact the clerk, and the clerk can contact you back. You can talk to the clerk about questions or say, I need additional information, this is what I need. The clerk then would most likely contact me and say, I got this question, how do you want me to handle it? And oftentimes, particularly if it's procedural in nature and not substantive, she would get your question, she would give you your answer, and she would email all of you to say, I received this question, and here's the answer provided. So she is not helping you deliberate. She is just making sure that these rules are followed. And that's okay. The difference then would be is if one of you would then answer and say, well, it's looking pretty bad for him, isn't it? That would be the violation. And most of the time, I'm going to say all the time, I'm CC'd and I can be watching for that, because if it's something that's so innocent and it's just human nature to say something and respond, then you might see something where I say, please don't respond to each other because we don't want to have a violation, and I'll be sort of your eyes over to make sure we're staying on the straight and narrow. And I'm super conservative with this. So you'll see it if it happens. We'll take care of you, we'll catch you. Don't hesitate to ask a question of the clerk though. She's not bound by the OMA. She's not an elected official, she's not an appointee. She's not the public body. I'm not the public body, he's not the public body, he's not the public body, you're the public body. Good questions.
Do we need to tweak the language here because it says the board may direct the clerk? If in the way you've described it, which makes good sense to me, individual board members not acting as the board itself are asking for information.
That is true. I see members of the board, so it's like, these are my fingers, this is the palm, this is my hand. So the board can be this, right? This is still part of my hand. So it's a very esoterical kind of thought process that you're the board, but you're the board, you're the board, you're the board, and yet you're a member of the board. So if you want some clarity on that, we could change it to say something like the board or an individual member may request
Yes.
the clerk to obtain. What do you guys think of that language?
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
Good. All right.
And she's always going to inform you what what the one member is doing so that you're all aware, but not violating anything. So the board or individual member may request instead of direct.
And that would apply to 303 and 403 as well.
303 and 403 as well. Look at you guys just whipping out these numbers like you've been living with this. Did you get that, James?
Yes.
All right.
Awesome. Okay.
So we were moving along on we were 11, 12, and I've got a couple comments, questions coming up, but 12, 13.
nothing so far.
Nothing for me.
Okay. I had one on page 14, section Rule 319, and then with its counterparts. And that is, I don't see any language in there about who's got the burden and what the standard of proof is. And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on that. Is that something that we should keep as is, or do we want that framework to guide us?
So that's why it's fun having a lawyer on the floor. That's a really good question. Because this is not criminal in nature, so if this were criminal in nature, it would have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not criminal, it's a sanction. It is not a civil infraction. A civil infraction would be like a ticket you get from a police officer for a traffic violation, and that is a preponderance of the evidence. That's 50-ish, 50.1% that way of any decision. We've never defined a standard like that for these decisions. You sort of know it or you don't. And again, because it's not criminal in nature, should it be 50%? Should it be 51%? Or is that something that, based upon the evidence that comes before you on individual cases, when you're measuring it against the particular code section, where it's happening or it's not? Sometimes what has happened in those kinds of cases is there's also the room, again, for your perspectives as people determining what's happening. Okay, so let me give you a really good example. There was a guy who came to a board. He was a new board member, and he was very, very zealous, overly zealous. And he started to go on social media, and he started to try to get his neighbors to activate against something. And when he did that, he wrote, as the member of the so-and-so board, I encourage you to say no to this and get mad and blah, 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 blah. That's a violation of the ethics ordinance. He was using his position as a board member to antagonize and rally his neighbors. Now, the guy was on the board all of 3 months. He violated the ordinance. He didn't know he was violating the ordinance. It turned out he got his pack of ordinance, but he never read it, even though he signed for it. So in that case, did he violate the ordinance? If it was a preponderance of the evidence, done. He's sanctioned. What do you do with him? You yell at him, you kick him off the board. And in a case like that, you would now have the discretion, if you leave the language as is, to say, all right, there was zero intent for this guy to use his position. He's young, he's zealous, he's inexperienced. He didn't know he was doing it, and now we can teach him. It's a teachable moment. And when it was explained to him why it's wrong, when we explained to him when you use your position of authority to do something like that, you're putting yourself in a better position than your neighbor who maybe disagrees with you but doesn't have that name and clout. That's part of why we don't want you to do it. You're also representing your views as the views of the whole board. That may not be the views of the board. And now what you've done is you've confused the public of what that board thinks, because they didn't vote on that. You're undermining how the political process and discourse works. He never saw any of that. And when I say he's young, he was like 22 years old. Not that, whoever's listening, you're smart when you're 22. But he didn't have the experience and the life experience to even make those connections. So they said to him, you know what, you're in violation. However, we don't think you should be sanctioned, but we're going to teach you some stuff here. And this is how you have to act from now on. And they're going to monitor your social media. And if it happens again, we're going to call you back in because now you've been taught. And that was the end of it. And that, their opinion was far more eloquent than I just said. So it cuts both ways. So if you give the standard, your hands are tied.
Well,
Do you want that, or do you want discretion?
I think the standard gives us discretion. I mean, I'm concerned about consistency over cases.
Very, very concerned about that.
Having a standard gives us a guidepost for that. I'm concerned about, just in human experience, there are some cases where the evidence is clear, other cases where, I'm not sure, or we're evaluating credibility to get to the ultimate question. And there are, we've got at least 3 levels of proof we could choose from: either preponderance, clear and convincing, and obviously we don't want proof beyond a reasonable doubt as the standard in this. So I don't have a strong feeling on it, but I tend to think that we could do exactly what you felt good about that board doing in terms of exercising discretion and trying to be educational, even if we have the framework that gives us again, a standard to account for uncertainty and hopefully consistency.
What do the other board members think?
For the actual language, can we?
Yeah, so it would be for, not for the advisory opinions, obviously that's what you call it, you see it.
Right.
But for a complaint as to conduct or a complaint as to disqualification, where we have to make a finding, that's where I would see them potentially fitting in, or depending on how we look at things.
I think the standard is definitely a good idea, but to the point of leaving it up to be more discretional, can we maybe make a clarifying point, like suggest more of the preponderance of the evidence and not have it be set in stone that that is how we will judge, how we will judge everything? Or, because then we will be fixed by that.
Well, legal counsel.
Do you want to pipe in at all?
No.
No, you're good, very good. Here's what I'm going to suggest, because I do think, I think it's really hard when we start defining the thresholds. I think that's really hard for people, because my 51% may not be your 51%. Clear and convincing, what's that?
I will tell you that in the attorney discipline system, in most states, the standard is clear and convincing. In Michigan, it's preponderance. I really doubt that there's a functional difference in how hearing panels go about their business. They want to be sure before
Yes.
somebody.
Here's what I also think. I also think people who want to be on the ethics board, be it you or people in the future, they are taking on the role because they know that they're going to be making a judgment call based upon evidence and conversation. Could be verbal evidence, could be physical evidence. You're taking that on to determine if somebody did something to violate something. You know, you're going to know it. You're going to know it happened and it's there, or you don't think it happened, or you don't think, most importantly, it rises to that level. I'm going to suggest this. Let's get a couple cases under your belt. Let's say, you know, in the next year you hear 10 cases, you will not. Let's say you hear 2 cases, 3 cases. I think we can come back and amend this. This is not, you know, these are rules, they're not ordinances. So they're easy to amend. Let's see how it works out for you. Let's see if you feel that you can do your job without that defining balance. And if you say, you know what, that was kind of tough, I don't like it, I think we should say preponderance, which is about 50.1% or more. And then you guys will guide what you think works. How about that? What do you think?
I think that makes real good sense.
I think so too. I think if you just set a standard, then you don't really need us, because you could just
Right.
bounce everything up against it and go, well, it meets the standard or it doesn't. And
Yep.
I think we're here to look at the other aspects that aren't as black and white as a standard.
Yep, I agree. And, you know, we're talking about human behavior. It's not always black and white. It's not even gray sometimes. Okay.
Absolutely.
This is such a great discussion. I'm having so much fun. Are you having fun? I love this.
This is always fascinating.
Yeah, I just love this. I just love this. Okay,
All right.
next.
So we were on page 14. On to page 15. I had one question there, but
Nope, no
Either
questions
one.
on 15.
okay. So for advisory opinions and complaints, the complainant can be an individual. For referral of question of disqualification, it does not include individual.
Let's see. So you're talking about 401?
Yes.
Okay, so the village, it should say it's council, by the way, not its commission.
Oh, yep.
It's
I missed that.
council and any board or committee which is called the referring body may refer to the board the question of whether an official or an employee is disqualified from discussion, deliberation, action, or voting on a pending matter due to a conflict of interest. The referring body will refer the question of disqualification to the board. So, yeah, so these are coming more from either one body to another body, or, it's funny, I kind of forgot about this one. So this doesn't happen too often, but this is when it is the actual body saying, should so-and-so be able to vote on this issue? And so individuals could still come and ask that same question, or the whole body can come and ask that question.
Well, but it doesn't say, for
For the
advisory
disqualification.
opinions and misconduct complaints, it does say individual.
I think adding the word individual would be very good, because that covers everything.
I think I can envision situations where it would be important.
So the village, the council, any village board, committee, or individual person. Yeah? You think that's a good spot to put that in, everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Good catch, I like that. I'm
You
going
know
to go
what?
amend
And
ours
I'm
now.
going to go backwards
Okay, back.
to 301, and it doesn't say individual, it says employee. Well, what if somebody wants to complain against a village council member or whatever, and they're not a village employee, but they've got a valid misconduct complaint?
So, let's see. A person with a complaint involving the applicability of any provision of the Code of Ethics with respect to the conduct of a village official or employee.
It does say person.
Oh, it does say a person.
Yep.
Never mind. My bad.
That's okay, and this one doesn't talk about boards bringing
No,
complaints.
right.
Right.
It's a person. Okay. In terms of adding a person on 401?
I agree with that.
I agree.
Okay. Going on down, page 15, 16. Obviously, the format is about the same, so I would assume. 17. On page 18, the complaint form, I'm wondering if we need to tweak, in the first paragraph, the last sentence says, within 7 days upon receipt of this filing, the clerk will set a hearing. That doesn't take into account, or unless I'm misreading it, that there can be some complaints that are summarily dismissed. So I'm wondering if it should read, if the complaint is not summarily dismissed, then the clerk will, upon receipt.
I see what you're saying, yes.
Yeah.
I think we had brought that up
Yep. Yeah, we brought that up last time.
last
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
so-
sounds familiar.
So within 7 days, the clerk will set a hearing. However, if Rule 201 or 202 was imposed, then that would not happen.
Yeah.
Right, good catch, you guys, really good catch. Okay, so how about, unless dismissed pursuant to sections 101 or 201 or 202, did I get that right?
It would be,
Yeah.
the dismissal would be per 202.
202.
201 is the request.
Thank you. So unless dismissed by section 202, within 7 days of the receipt of this filing, the clerk will set a hearing for this matter. So, and again, when she sets the hearing within 7 days, it doesn't mean you have to have the hearing within 7 days.
Actually, I think it's 302, isn't it? 202 is for advisory opinions.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
Now, we're just getting to
Yep,
learning.
302.
We're just learning.
Yes, because we did this one first and not the advisory first. So yes, and then that's the other thing. Is that clear enough, though, where it says they will set a hearing for this matter within 7 days? Should we put something in there that the hearing's not necessarily held within 7 days? It's just set within 7
It's
days.
set within 7 days. Yeah.
Yeah, it does say set a date. It doesn't say we'll hold the hearing.
Right.
Okay, so you guys are good with that.
I think that's,
How about if we even change that to the clerk will set a hearing date
That's even better.
for this matter and notify the parties involved? Perfect.
should we change set to schedule?
You know, that may even be better, yeah. I think that really takes any ambiguity out. That's a really good suggestion. So unless dismissed by section 302, within 7 days upon receipt of this filing, the clerk will schedule.
That's good. Not
A
by
hearing
302,
date.
pursuant to 302. Instead of by 302, pursuant to 302.
Pursuant to. Okay. I think schedule a hearing date really clarifies that.
Good. So any other comments, questions on any aspect of the procedural rules or the forms?
One last thing.
Of course.
The form only says ethics incident or complaint.
Right.
Do they fill out the same form for an advisory opinion?
There's another one at the,
That-
behind
okay.
this one.
Is that?
Oh, right.
Oh, there it is,
Sam.
okay. I thought I had scrolled to the end. Okay, so it's,
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
No.
All right. So at this point then, it would appear that we're in a position to entertain a motion to adopt the rules, the procedural rules and forms as amended in the course of this conversation. And does would it seem that it should be subject to a final read-through after the modifications have been incorporated, which we can then do at the next meeting?
Yes, yes. And you could, you wouldn't necessarily have to get together to have another meeting just to do that. You could if you wanted to. If you don't want to and you want to wait till you convene to have any type of hearing, then you could put that on your agenda before the hearing began, that you needed to give the final approval to the amendments.
So we could refer to it as provisional approval, so that it's not still pending? Or how would you characterize it?
I think it's important to get this on the books as soon as
Right.
possible. And
Right.
so I think what you could do is you would give, your motion would be to approve the procedural rules as discussed and amended, and that would be it. However, you could put on your agenda item for your next meeting before a hearing, just something of question to assure no further changes or something like that. So that you've adopted it and it's on the books.
Right.
But if something happened, you don't like the way it read, there was an error, you can always fix it at that next meeting. So a conditional approval tonight then does not set it in fact.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I think you want to make sure it's done. If you see something you don't like, you can bring it back. You can bring it back 2 months from now. You know, if you, as it's living and breathing, if you hear complaints from people saying, I didn't understand that, that wasn't clear, or you're living with it, right? And you're breathing it, and you say, this, I don't like this. We can come back and change this any other time as well.
Okay.
motion to approve the Board of Ethics procedural rules and forms as amended this evening.
Is there a second?
Support.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And yet again, Mr. Chair, thank you for your guidance in this
Oh, my
conversation.
pleasure. This, like I said, this was fun. I don't think a lot of things I do are fun, so this was really fun.
All right, we are at the public comment section of the agenda. I do not see any members of the public present. Closed session, I assume, does not apply to us.
It does not, so we should remove that?
Yep, I have it on my,
And 9 and 10 would both come up?
In that case, unless somebody has something else,
One more thing.
go. Yeah.
What are we going to do with meetings? She said we
Yeah.
don't have to have them. I think we need to discuss if we're going to keep
Good
our
catch.
scheduled monthly meetings or not.
Yes, and you probably want to make a record of that. And if you really have nothing to discuss unless a hearing comes up. Or let's say, I don't know, let's say one of you attend a seminar and you decide you want to share some stuff with the board. You can always shoot an email to the clerk saying, I would really like the board to convene because I'd really like to share what I've learned, or I want to talk about this, or I want to talk about that, and then that can happen. But the whole purpose of you to meet and convene is for your opinions. So you really have no reason to meet until you are put into business.
One of the things that I think all three of us have expressed on the public record is an interest in doing things that are preventive, as you also
Yes.
addressed. And so I'm wondering if it would be beneficial to have a meeting where we explore whether there's anything preventive we can and should be doing for the benefit of the village. Just throw that out there as a question.
You know, that's really an excellent point, and I will tell you, and I think it's on the website, and if it's not, I can get it for all of you. Many times over, our ethics board, and we would sometimes get our parliamentarian expert, not that that has to do with you guys, but we would have the ethics board and other people go to the different boards and employees and give a little training and a seminar as preventative. And if you guys are willing to spend your time to do that, I can't tell you how awesome I think that would be. Because you're right, a lot of this needs to be preventative. That's the purpose of it, not to be punitive, but to make everybody better. So that would be an awesome thing if you guys wanted to do that. So if you want to start doing research and looking at maybe some materials, again, if it's not on the website, I can get a copy of that. It's a video that you can see how they gave presentations and education. So if you were to have a meeting about exploring that and how you would do it, that would be really, really good. And you could do a one-stop thing. You wouldn't have to go to each board and each committee. They could all come together and not be a violation of the OMA. They're not deliberating, they're learning. So the manager could help you facilitate getting everybody in the room, and you could do a really great educational series.
I mean, I would assume one of the issues that would be likely to come up, and one that you used in your examples is, you know, what is and is not a conflict.
Right. And as you're developing that, because you know you will get the scenarios, the what ifs. And so that's the only thing you want to be careful of, is because people love to what if. You know, they can what if at a meeting all night long. And you don't want to get boxed in to answering those questions, because the what ifs are never good to answer, because there's always other variables, and you don't want people to come back and say, but you said. Remember at that meeting I asked if this, then this? Because there's always one or two other variables that can turn it just that other way to create a conflict or to create an activity that undermined the confidence in government. So as you do those kinds of things and as you do those seminar things, I think if it would be okay with you, I'd love to hear what you would present before you did it, and so we could walk through and make sure that we're hitting it right and be ready to say we're not taking what ifs, which is hard to do. It's hard to tell people no.
I think we would be greatly interested in your feedback. Yes.
That would really be great. That would be a great program. And it's really admirable that so early on you guys would be willing to take something like that on.
I think we had also kind of discussed what existing ethics training, if any,
There is
out
yes.
there, so we don't maybe not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but you know, just provide the most value that we can.
I can get back to, with Sonia about that, and in fact there is an annual meeting that different communities host. Downtown Detroit had, I think they hosted it last year, and it's a day or two event of people who serve on ethics boards throughout the state, throughout the country. So let me do some research for you, see what I can find. I am in still contact with the chairperson that came to speak to the council. His name is James Robb, Attorney James Robb.
I'm sorry, what's the last name?
James Robb. You have probably met James Roberts.
His name's familiar, but I'm not,
Yeah, he's been around. He's just so good at this. And I will do some research, but I'll also contact him because he could. I tried to call him today to say, if you had advice for these people, what would you have me tell them? And I couldn't get a hold of him. So I'm still going to talk to him, and if I get some words of wisdom, I will send them on to you.
thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So, we know that we do have something we do want to do even before we get any requests. And how does that impact how we want to schedule things?
So I think our next scheduled meeting is October 22nd. And then I believe that's the last one for the year on our schedule.
I think
that
there
correct?
was one more.
I don't know if
November.
because Thanksgiving and
Right,
the holidays.
right.
I think you set it up as monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Right.
so should we plan on having a meeting on October 22nd?
Sure. I would be good with that.
If
Oh, yeah.
we,
No, I think if we're going to follow through on what we say we want to do, I think that would be a good thing. This is great.
so our schedule will stay the same for the year that we adopted.
Yes,
Okay.
Did they adopt a regular monthly meeting schedule for the year? And so you've adopted a regular monthly meeting schedule to comply with the Open Meetings Act?
That's
Because the
right.
Open Meetings Act requires annual notice to the public of regular meetings of each board and commission, so that's what you did.
Yes.
But at some point, after you feel like you've gotten this initial organizational, all of your organizational business in place, then it's just a matter of only meeting when you've got cases coming before you. So your regular meetings will normally be canceled unless you have actual business to take care of. Very similar to our Board of Zoning Appeals. They only meet when they've got cases coming before them. Otherwise, we cancel those meetings. And we issue a notice to the public that the
Right.
meeting is canceled.
Yeah.
okay,
We did have one scheduled in November, but not in December.
okay.
So there is one,
So for the moment, we'll leave that on, we should leave that on the agenda, on the schedule, and we could decide at the end of the October meeting whether we
yeah,
want it
what we'll
or-
do
Yeah.
for,
Currently, we have November 26th scheduled also.
Okay, excellent. Anything else? Well, we want to thank Ms. Kuchera very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you
Yeah.
for serving.
Thank you.
Find two
Very.
alternates.
Yeah,
And on behalf of administration, I definitely want to thank you, all three of you, for your willingness to serve our community, serve the village government. I can't tell you how much it means to us. It will sometimes be a very difficult job for you, and I want you to know how much we appreciate you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, unless, if there's, I'm sorry,
Motion to adjourn?
I was going to say, unless there's something else, is there a motion to adjourn?
There is.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.